We have a guest speaker, Ms. Amy Waddle. She's a mental health advocate. She will be speaking to you this morning as part of the MCP profile of the grant. So I want you to give a warm welcome to Amy and her associates as well, Trista and Renee. Here's Ms. Amy Waddle.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? You're doing well. Good. You're a nice talkative group. Well, I am very excited to be here. As he said, my name is Amy Waddle, and today is going to be all about mental wellness, okay? Because we all have mental health. Just like we all have heart health, lung health, other parts of our body, we try to stay well, right? So mental health is no different. And one of the reasons why I go out to schools and share my story and educate people is because I, too, live with a mental health condition. I have almost my entire life. And what I'd like to do today is a couple of things. First, you're going to hear my personal story, how it impacted my life, and how at one point I almost lost everything. You're also going to hear how to know when you need help. So when you walk out of here, you don't just know all about Amy Waddle, right? Everything about my life, and that's going to help you so much knowing about me. What I want to be for you is more of like a mirror for you to see inside your own lives, your own journeys. So you can connect with that and take that with you in all areas of your life, because our mental health affects all areas of our life. What's the difference between teenager, typical, right, life, and signs of a mental health condition? Because they can really overlap. So I'm going to help decipher for you the differences, because this part of life has so many ups and downs. Life in general will continue to have ups and downs, but you will build skills to be able to navigate through that. But right now, you're all just starting high school. Your second week in, right? Is anybody still nervous about having to do this thing called high school? Huge, yes. Such a big deal. There's so many things that are coming your way, and they're having conversations about college and grades and expectations. You're also going to hear about how to help someone else. How do you know that somebody else may be struggling, and what to actually do, what you can say. Because so many people that I talk to, your age, tell me, Amy, I want to say something, but I'm too afraid. I don't know what to say. I want to help. I don't want to make it worse. So I'm going to help you out with that today. I'm going to give you I'm going to give you a 4-step action plan that you can use to help anybody in your life that you think is struggling. Does it sound good? All right. Good, good, good. And lastly, because this is probably the biggest part of it has been for me, is how to stay true to yourself. We're going to talk about identity. We're going to talk about self-esteem and confidence. Because sometimes life beats us. We're broken. We forget who we are. We just need to be reminded of our worth. We need to be reminded that we're stronger than we think. We need to be reminded of why we're here. Right? Okay. Do you know that being brave is not the absence of fear? Being brave is doing what you fear regardless. You're doing it anyway. And that's where it started for me. I started from a place of being really, really scared. And it brought me to just about 8 years ago, almost losing everything that I loved, even my own life. But I needed to be brave. My story, being broken and broken down and self-hatred and self-loathing and all those things didn't just happen overnight. right? I didn't wake up on Tuesday and go, oh my gosh, my life's broken and messing apart. You know, it was years in the making. It happened over, I would say, 33 years. I'm going to take you back in time. Anybody want to do a little time travel? Yeah, no, me too. All right, let's do it. So we're going to time travel. Yeah, we're going to go back in time to when I was 3. Just imagine, that was like a really long time ago, okay? We're in the 70s now. Okay, not that long. 80s. So I'm 3 years old, and my first friend in life was a little girl named Linny. We played together all the time. We got along really well. I mean, I'm talking like all the Fisher-Price toys and all the stuffed animals, and we'd pretend to be mice chased by a cat. We would stack up all of these big cushions on the sofa, and we'd run and jump on the cushions for safety, and it was so real to us. Remember as kids, we played and everything was real. Like, that's lava. That was really lava to us. Again, I was very close to Linny, but sometimes she would just leave abruptly. She'd be gone. What I didn't realize at the time was Linny was also my mother. My mother had a multiple personality disorder. From a traumatic childhood she had no control over, and her brain created a person to protect herself so that it could survive. That's how amazing our brains are. So there was a little girl named Linny, and there was my mom. We would go from playing Fisher-Price to, all right, go wash your hands, time for dinner. I mean, that's kind of weird. And as I grew up, I don't know where Linny went. I don't know if Linny shared with me anything that happened to her. I don't remember any instances where she said something to me to make me think that maybe I wasn't safe. But I brought through life this deep-rooted belief that the world wasn't safe, that my body wasn't safe. And I'm still trying to figure out where that came from. But it was so rooted deep inside of me that it affected everything that I did. Besides having a mother with a mental health condition, personality disorder, I had a father who was extremely dedicated to his work. He was successful. He was hardworking. I remember looking up to him and thinking, when you want something, you sacrifice for it. I mean, his job must have been really, really important for him to not come home. I thought, well, either that or I'm not worth coming home to. When you're a little kid and you have a smaller brain, you're not able to think that maybe there's something else going on. I just assumed it was me. So that created a really low self-esteem and self-worth. I mean, Dad was an empty space. There was an empty space on the kitchen table when I'm on the table. At the table, my dad doesn't sit on the table. In the garage, in the spot by my mom. And I remember the only time I was able to interact with my dad was when I would lay in bed next to my mom. And when he'd come home from work, he'd have to pick me up and carry me to bed. That was the only time that I was able to connect with him. And he was always wearing a work shirt with one of those starched collars. And he was always a businessman to me, not really a father. And it impacted, again, like we talked about, self-esteem, self-worth. So here we have a young girl, me, with no confidence. Until one day, when I found ballet. We got a ballerina. Yeah. We got 2 ballerinas. Hey! I found ballet. And something clicked. I was a complete natural. It just kind of came out of my body, like somehow my body knew how to do it. People would say, how do you know how to do that? I'm like, I have no idea. I just copied her, the teacher. Oh, I made lots of friends that way. Lots of friends. People loved it when I kept getting moved up and getting the parts, right? All of a sudden, my dad showed up. Came to all my shows, drove me to rehearsals, involved in my life for the very first time, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is a huge deal. I'm doing something. I am something. And that means he's going to show up. So what does that mean to me? It means I'm worth something when I'm doing something. And I fell in love with ballet. I moved away from home when I was 14 years old. Who's 14? I was your age. Oh yeah, I had my own dorm room and roommates and a checkbook. I could go grocery shopping and buy any kind of cereal I wanted. That was a big deal too, because Mom always tried to make us eat those cornflakes. I had independence, and for me, for my personality, for my drive, because I was always really hardworking, I loved it. I loved it. I grew up so fast. I had no desire to do anything else with my life. And when you're studying, pre-professional classical ballet, you don't do much else. You dance 6-7 hours a day. You dance 6 days a week. You're training to be a professional. Like any other sport, if I was training to be in the Olympics, I wanted to be an Olympian, right? Like any other sport. And guess what else? Thank you. Everyone else around me was just like me. They were just like me. Personality-wise, we got along so well. We all knew what we wanted in life. And I think up to that point in my life, I was feeling like I was different. I was, per my mother, because I don't remember this, very emotional, extremely emotional, highs and lows. And you know what I got labeled? Overly emotional. That was just Amy. And I remember feeling this space between me and the people around me, but not in dance. I found a place where I belonged. Do you know how important it is to find a place where you belong? To feel connected? Do you know that that is part of the human condition? We all need to feel a place where we belong. And it's especially important when we are at this age, when we're still trying to figure out who we are. Who are we? That guy over there is a wiggle worm. He can't sit still. The kid in the orange shirt. I called you out. Because I can. Well, unfortunately, with professional anything, you have to work your way up, right? You got to do level 1, you got to do level 2, level 3, and when you're younger, you look up at the big, successful older dancers, and you're like, God, I want to be like that. But I started getting recognized because of my work ethic, how hard I pushed my body. I would show up even when I was sick. And I started getting parts to be understudy under the lead roles. And so I finally got picked to be an understudy for one of the lead swans in Swan Lake in 1994. It was a big deal. It was awesome. Did you like that? Swan? Ouch. I just hurt myself. I'm just kidding. I'm old. So, where was I? Swan Lake. So here I am. I am so excited. You know what I was going to do? I was going to blow him out of the water. What? I got my chance. I didn't do it. I didn't make it happen. But this girl suffered a stress fracture in her foot the night before the show, and I got to dance all of her parts. I really, really wished I had held on to that feeling. Because when I woke up the next morning, I couldn't move. They brought me to the best doctors in Washington, D.C. Petra Spasman, who ran the school, said, "Fix my dancer. She's my star. Fix her and bring her back." But standing in that doctor's office, looking at the MRI on the screen, I remember looking right into my body and thinking, I can see my failure. I'll never forget the moment the doctor told me I would never dance again. It was it for me. It was over. I was 17 years old. I had to retire. I had to move back home. What's worse, my dad went back to work. I lost everything in one day. I couldn't handle that. And the emotions, there were so many conflicting emotions. There was anger, there was sadness. I think I was in shock. I packed up all my stuff. I left my best friends. And I went back to regular high school. Halfway through sophomore year, and I remember not knowing where I fit. I didn't have a peer group yet. You know how everybody just kind of sections off. You get your friend groups, and when you start new, you're like, I don't know you, I don't know you, I don't know anybody. But you know who I was? I was the girl who came back from dance school, and I got all the questions, hey, why don't you dance anymore? I don't really want to talk about it. They put me in a brace that went from my ribs to my hip, and there was a big Velcro strap on it. I was kind of like a robot a little bit. Like, it's not natural to not be able to move your torso. It just doesn't look natural, especially when you have to pick something up, because you can't bend. And high school kids are so nice, aren't they? They're so nice. Sometimes. They didn't knock on my brace. Oh no. Or give me nicknames like Ace of Brace. And it continued to build this space between me and the rest of the world. I was so angry. And I want to share with you some of the symptoms that I was experiencing at that young age, because I don't want to miss any. I was feeling intense fear of rejection. I couldn't handle any form of rejection. I remember when my first boyfriend broke up with me, I wanted to end my life. That was it. I can't handle rejection. Boom, my mind said, done. My friends just went out and got another boyfriend. There was this huge difference between my ability to process intense emotions and the people around me. And you know who I blamed for that? I blamed myself. Because I didn't know what was going on inside my mind. So I had an intense fear of rejection. The camera person's gonna get really mad at me because I keep moving. I was in so much what we call emotional pain. If I broke my ankle right now, would you see it, my pain? What would I be doing? Ow. Would I be limping? Probably. You'd be like, oh my gosh, that girl broke her ankle. But can you see my emotional pain? Not all the time. Because we keep it hidden. And I think we do that because we don't know what to do with it. I mean, those are some scary feelings. So I was in a lot of emotional pain. Another thing that I was experiencing was that I was hurting so deep, I didn't even know where to start finding it. That's the only way that I can describe that emotional pain. I felt very isolated from everyone around me, even when I had a big friend group. Have you ever felt alone in a crowd? You can feel completely alone. Yes. It's possible. Is it possible to be in an emotional pain and have a smile on your face? Yeah. Hey, that's how I got through life. I faked it for a really long time, and I got really, really good at it. Has anyone ever faked it? Is anybody faking it right now? They all raise their hands. But have you ever felt that way? You don't have to raise your hand. I don't want you to raise your hand. I want you to think inside of yourself, have you ever felt lost? Have you ever felt like you and the rest of the world are not connected? Have you ever felt a sadness that you can't make go away? Those were often the signs that someone's struggling with a mental health condition. And it impacts their life in a huge way. So, Miss Amy, sometimes I feel sad, really, really sad. Does that mean I have depression? Not necessarily. Because being sad, being anxious is a typical emotions we all feel. We all feel those things. Who's ever felt anxious before a test? Or having to tell your parents something you don't really wanted them to know, but you had to tell them. What else makes you anxious? Homework. Okay, what else? All right. Yeah, I'm gonna write all that down. That was a lot of stuff. That was a lot of stuff. Ray, come back to me. There we go. There's a couple things that I could have done to help myself in those moments. Gentlemen. Hello. I just don't get it. Hello. Guy in the striped shirt. There's a couple things I could have done back then to help myself. Number one, cut myself some slack. I was so hard on myself, and I had such extreme high expectations, I couldn't even meet my own expectations. Everything had to be perfect. And everything that wasn't perfect was a failure. To me, in my mind, I couldn't make a mistake. So if I could go back, I would cut myself some slack, ease up on myself, because I was doing the best that I could. We go through life and we do the best we can with what we have. And that is okay. And if you're not okay right now, if you're doing the best that you can right now, then that's what you need to be doing. And you keep going. Keep going. I could have honored my body. Man, I was punishing myself at every turn. Didn't take long after I came back home and I started hearing this voice inside my head. And it said, you know, if you just stay thin, if you just keep your dancer body, your dancer physique, you can keep all those things that you had when you were a dancer. Does that make sense? I mean, I thought the body was what I could control, and the body was to blame for what happened to me. My body wasn't strong enough. My body wasn't good enough. I couldn't cut it. Again, see? High expectations. I was actually willing to sacrifice my health to be thin. I did everything that I could, but because I didn't care if I hurt myself. I didn't care if I was hungry. I didn't care if I was full. I didn't care if I was thirsty or tired. I had absolutely no respect for myself. I was literally my own worst enemy. I remember my family tried to take me on a beach vacation to make me feel better. I mean, isn't that pretty amazing? Usually like, oh, let's go out for pizza tonight. Oh no. We went to the beach for a week. Not here, I was living back in Delaware, which was a big deal. So going to the beach was a very big deal. But guess what? Didn't help. Because my pain was in my mind. And what no one knew at the time, I had bipolar 2 disorder. My brain did not have the right balance of chemicals to process through life. But guess who I blame for that? Yep, it's my fault. Must be something wrong with me, right? Because I'm not like everyone else. I'm not like everyone else. Have you ever felt different? Every once in a while, we're like, man, why do I feel so different than everybody else? Why can't I be like everyone else? So I had that idea in my head that there was something wrong with me. I could have honored my body. And the biggest thing that I could have done, and I would if I could go back, is talk about it. Talk about it. When my mom asked me, "Are you okay?" I should have said no. No, Mom, I need help. I'm hurting. I don't understand it. I'm angry and I'm afraid and I need help. But I didn't, because I was never taught that I could do that. Nobody talked about mental health. All we know were like some people were psycho, and there was like a loony bin. I mean, these are all really outdated, stigmatizing words. That was the kind of stuff. I thought when I was finally diagnosed with my bipolar 2, I thought, oh my gosh, does that mean I have to like go to a hospital? I just didn't understand that it was actually a disease in my brain that I could take medication for, get treatment for. And it did not have to run my life. It was not who I was anymore. And when I finally got diagnosed, I was able to see that. I was able to see that there was actually a space between me and my problems. Because sometimes we think our problems are us. They are our identity. You may know a person. You're like, oh God, Amy, this sounds like so-and-so. Or I've been really worried about my friend because I have this feeling they're not well. So let's talk about that. If you were going to ask your friend a very personal question, and you're scared to do it, why are you scared to ask that personal question? Raise your hand so I can pick on you. Yes. Afraid of how they're going to react. Yes. Like if they're intimidated, yes. If they're bigger than you, if they didn't like your asking, they'll punch you in the face, right? Yeah, totally. I'm afraid of that all the time. What else? I was taught that you don't get in people's business. I was always taught, you know, that's personal, we don't talk about that. And here's the thing, is that my family never talked about it, and I thought, well, if they don't talk about it, then I'm not supposed to bring it up, right? And I don't want to be that nosy person. Or maybe, just maybe, if I bring it up, then I'll bring it into existence, and they will start to feel sad or bad about themselves. I have no idea how this is happening right now. Hi, gentlemen. How you doing? Don't be afraid to reach out to your friend, because this is what I would have wanted at the time. I would want someone to keep asking me until I opened up. Not one time. Hey, how you doing? I'm fine. Okay. Keep asking. So what are you going to ask? What kind of question are you going to ask? Are you going to ask, you're scaring me right now with what you're doing. You're acting really weird. What's going on?